What's going on, guys? So a question I get asked all the time, especially since Ford has revealed their new towing numbers for the 2020 Ford Super Duty pickup truck, is why Ford uses an F450 truck to compete against Ram's 3500 and GM's 3500 HD dually pickup trucks. Why not use an F350? So let's take a moment and talk about that. Alright guys, so to really understand why an F450 pickup truck exists today, you really need to go back and understand what Ford used to offer. So Ford had a package that was very similar to the F450 pickup truck package in the past called the Tow Boss. The Tow Boss was a premium towing version of the F350 dually. Basically, the only real differences were it had a higher gross combined vehicle weight rating, which means the overall tow capacity was increased with the trailer truck combination. It had a wide track front axle, and it had the 430 rear gear ratio. That was pretty much it. But at the time, the premium difference between that truck and the standard F350 dually was about the same percentage-wise as an F450 is to an F350 dually. Now, let's talk about the differences between the F350 Tow Boss package and the F450. So they both came with the wide track front axle, they both came with the 430 gear ratio, and really that's where things ended. The frame differences weren't there, there weren't wheel and tire differences, it didn't have the same large brakes as the F450, and it didn't have the same larger front frame section of the F450. However, the price was roughly the same. So when you buy an F450 today, you're basically getting the F350 Tow Boss, the suspension, everything's virtually the same, except they've given it a few additional enhancements that make it similar to an F450 in other areas. So the towing numbers, the payload numbers, those really didn't differ from the Tow Boss package that you could get on the F350. The differences between the 450 and the 350 Tow Boss are the fact that you get the 19.5-inch Alcoa wheels, you get the commercial grade tires, you get larger brakes, as well as a slightly beefed up rear axle shaft section. So the rear half shafts that go into the axle are going to be slightly larger. And then the front frame section is also going to be beefed up. But in terms of the suspension, in terms of a lot of the other characteristics of the truck, it's pretty much an F350. They've just added some other robust touches to it to give the truck a higher gross combined vehicle weight rating. But in terms of payload capacity on an F450 is actually slightly lower than that of an F350. It's not as big of a difference as it used to be, but it's about a 500 to 700 pound difference in payload capacity on a 450 versus a 350. And that means an F350 is actually going to be closer to being that ton-and-a-half truck that people like to say the F450 is. Now, the F450 is definitely an underrated truck. And what I mean by that is, does it have the capability of supporting greater payload than an F350 dually? Technically it does, because the tires and the wheels are going to be rated for a much higher payload capacity than an F350, and it's also going to have thicker half shafts. It's also going to carry the 430 gear ratio, which is going to be a better towing package, and that's the reason why the F450 has a superior tow rating to the F350. But in terms of the two trucks, they're virtually identical. There aren't a lot of differences. Now, to wrap this video up, let me give you the differences of an F450 versus a current F350, and I've made this comparison in several videos in the past. You get the larger beefed up front frame section from the F450 commercial truck. You get the larger 19.5-inch Alcoa wheels and tires. You get the larger brakes. You get the larger half shafts inside of the axle. It's the same rear axle and differential. The difference is you have a larger half shaft, and your gear ratio is a 430 gear ratio versus the 410 gear ratio that you can get on the max tow equipped version of the F350. So aside from those, it's really the same truck. The leaf spring setup is identical. The front suspension setup is virtually identical. You'd have to get the extra heavy service suspension on the 350 to match the standard suspension that comes on the F450. But all in all, they're very similar trucks. So when Ford compares the F450 to the Ram 3500 or the GM 3500 HD dually trucks, they're really doing it from a naming perspective. As far as the specifications, they're all Class 3 vehicles, so they all share the same 14,000 pound gross vehicle vehicle weight rating. So really what it comes down to at the end of the day is that the F450 is really designed to be a tow leader. It's designed to be a truck that is capable of towing the most weight, whereas the F350 is designed to be a truck that hauls the most weight, because the F350 dually is always going to have a higher payload capacity than the F450, whereas the F450 is going to have a higher towing capacity. So understanding and kind of delineating between the two is kind of important, especially if you're going to use one versus the other for something like a truck bed camper versus hauling a larger fifth wheel. And when it comes to the reasons why the F450 pickup shares some of the components as the F450 cabin chassis vehicle, really some of those components are designed more for over-the-road capability. The 19.5-inch wheels and tires give you longer tread life over the road, and the front turning angle is going to give you more maneuverability when towing something large like a fifth wheel or a trailer. So in my opinion, it was really geared towards the F450 being a towing vehicle and the F350 being a hauling vehicle that can also tow. So I hope this video helps clear some of that up, because a lot of times people think that the F450 pickup truck is the same as the F450 cabin chassis truck, and that's not true. The frame from the front through the cab is the same, but from there back it's completely different. The leaf spring setups are completely different. You have 9 to 11 leaf springs on a chassis cab truck. You have 4 on a Super Duty F450 pickup truck, and that's a big difference. So aside from that, they are relatively similar, but they are going to have completely different payload numbers, and the towing numbers are even going to be different between the F450 pickup and the cabin chassis. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.